All right, good morning once again. Welcome to Digital Z Hub. My name is Eguero Prosper, an IT consultant at Digital Z Hub. Okay, so remember in our last discussion, we talked about general introduction to Bootstrap. General introduction to Bootstrap. We defined Bootstrap as a JavaScript framework. In other words, is a library that has pre-built functions and properties of CSS for us to create responsive websites. And I told us in that class that the essence of consulting Bootstrap is because we want to create user-friendly websites, and most especially, we want to create responsive websites. Remember, I explained to us what responsive website is. I told us that responsive websites are websites that can adjust automatically to the sizes of different devices. For example, you build a website and somebody used a mobile phone to open that website. The website content should be able to fit to that phone content without scattering the content. All right, so the same thing, if the person's opened the website with a laptop, it should also contrast to the size of the laptop screen. So that is one of the main reasons of using Bootstrap to build website for responsiveness. Now, we talk about how do we set it up in our projects. Let's say you are building a website for a client and you want that website to be Bootstrap website, which means that you want to build it on top of Bootstrap so that you can use the pre-built Bootstrap classes on your HTML element that will automatically reflect the CSS that must have been put in place by the Bootstrap, and also inherits the functions of JavaScript that have also been put in place. So I told us that there are three ways we can actually set up Bootstrap or install Bootstrap in our web projects. And I explained only two, that the other one does not concern us. It is strictly for those that are using another framework called React. They are the one that we use NPM. Now, for us, we are to use the offline. We are to use the offline and the CDN method. Remember, I told us that the offline is where you download the entire Bootstrap from their server into your project, just like we did here now. That is what gave us access to these two folders. Then I said the CDN, which means the Content Delivering Network. It means that you are hooking your website to their server such that once you are on the internet, you'll be able to enjoy or synchronize all their CSS or their JavaScript function in your project. And remember, I advised us that when you are learning like this, the best option is the offline so that you can peek, so that you can see some of the properties. Because right now it's as if what Bootstrap have in its server is what I have access to. Now, that will enable you as a developer to increase the knowing of your CSS property, and if possible to also understand some of the JavaScript code that must have been pre-programmed by Bootstrap. But if you are using the CDN, you don't have the privilege of seeing. If you are using that CDN, you cannot say, okay, I want to check the CSS work that you did. I want to check the JavaScript work that you have put in place. You won't see all that if you are using the CDN. So another advantage of using the CDN method is that whenever there is updates at the global level, that is, once they modify any of these functions in their server, because your website is connected to it, it will automatically what? Updates. That is what we are saying. So now, one of the way we confirmed that we have successfully set up Bootstrap is for us to create an HTML element and try using one of the Bootstrap classes to see whether the CSS are reflecting. And when we try this, let's check, you see that what? The CSS is reflecting. That confirms to me that this element is using CSS classes. And I explained something to us, which I want to also reiterate here. Now you can see the BTN. Now every Bootstrap element, or most Bootstrap elements, when I use the word element, I'm talking about HTML tags. Every Bootstrap element has base class. Base class. For example, this particular BTN, the base class is BTN. Now, what about this class? This class, the base class, is the one that carries the code, the JavaScript code, the CSS code for making that element responsive, to make it responsive. Remember, by now you know what I mean by responsiveness. That is what? It is this that will make this element to fit, to display according to the size of the devices that might be used to display it. Now, what about this one? This is the one that is directly implementing the CSS. So there are two things here. One is the one that is implementing the responsiveness. One is the one that is determining the style, the appearance. And that is why, even as we wanted to color, we have to reference that base word class, because that base class is the principal class. Now, what it means is that if you do away with this, if you do away with this class, number one, this element will not be responsive. So that is just to recap some of the things we did last time. Now, in this session, we are focusing on a different topic, which is called Bootstrap grid system. So let me use comment to explain that. Bootstrap grid system. I hope you guys are still hearing me, please. Bootstrap what? Grid system. So that is the topic, Bootstrap grid system. So I actually schedule 1 hour, 30 minutes for it, but let's see how fast we can go. So you see, anybody learning Bootstrap must start by understanding how does Bootstrap lay out, how does it create the layouts, the structure that encourages the website adjusting to different what devices. That is what the grid system concept is all about. So at this point, we want to learn what is the secret behind Bootstrap being able to adjust the entire website to different what screen sizes. When the website is open on a mobile phone, no matter how small that mobile phone is, everything that you are seeing on the big laptop screen displayed properly on that small device. How is Bootstrap achieving it? Which technology is it using? That is what we want to learn as what? Grid system. Now, when you talk about grid, there are components that must be taken into consideration. Number one, you need to know that we are going to be representing elements sorry, yeah, sorry that there was a kind of disturbance I need to. Okay, so like I was saying, that is what grid system is all about. And there's nobody that build websites with Bootstrap that do not understand what we call grid system. Because the grid system, let's look at the definition properly. I will have typed it, but you should be writing, or maybe later when you get the video, you sit down and make your notes. So Bootstrap grid system is a layout. Bootstrap grid system is a layout framework that divides a web page or web pages into 12 equal columns. Let me see if I can type it for clarity purpose. I say Bootstrap grid system is a layout. So the keyword there is what? The layout. It's a layout framework. It's a layout framework that divides a web page into 12 equal columns. So that is the keyword. So what we are saying is this. Let me just give us an illustration. So this is just like your website. Now, this is 1 by 1 by default, which means one column, 1 row. Now we are talking about if we have to now if we are talking about dividing this into, if we are to divide this into columns, into how many spaces we can break this into. What we are saying is that Bootstrap divide the whole of this 1 row, 1 space, 1 column into 12 equal spaces. So you can't go above 12. You cannot divide this into 13 places, into 14. So you must understand that. So that is what I mean by the Bootstrap grid system is a layout framework that divides a web page into 12 equal columns. Now, allowing you to arrange content in a clean, responsive structure. So that is what we are talking about. So in other words, what exactly is making Bootstrap to fit the entire website into different screen sizes? So because it has a grid system that can divide the entire web page into 12 equal columns. So which means that the 12 of them is for a laptop. What we are saying here, let me give us a further illustration because I just want us to understand it. So for example, this is mobile phone. This is the shape of a mobile phone. Then this is the shape of a laptop, for example, laptop or tablet. Now, since we have an idea of how many columns we can have in a single row, which is 12. Now, on a laptop, we can have the whole of the 12 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on till what? 12. Now, the question is that each device has what we call breaking points. So anybody learning Bootstrap must understand what is called breaking points. We did elasticity in school, which means that when you stretch something to its limit, it breaks. So with that concept in mind, the breaking point, now let's analyze this. What we are saying is that on laptop, Bootstrap can give us what? 12 columns. That is if you choose to use the 12 of them. Now, but this is like column 1. This is column 2. This is column 3. This is column 4. And so on to what? Column 12. Now, this, if I'm to analyze this becomes 1 row times 12 column. 1 row times 12 column. That is what it means. Now, this is on laptop. On laptop, you have this configuration. On laptop, you have this configuration. Now, if this same website that is displaying 12 columns is open on a mobile phone, how many of these columns will you be able to display? That is the grid system we're talking about. So on a mobile phone, it will now become like this. Each of these columns we take a full row. So this will become column 1. This will become what? Column what? 2. This will become column 3. This will become column 4, and so on. Is anybody getting it? Let me get a response. I want to know if I'm making sense with this diagram, because I'm giving us the background picture of what we want to go into. Are you getting it? Okay, so now, which means that on a mobile phone, the whole of a column will collapse. It means that on a mobile phone, the whole of a column will collapse into what? 1 row. While on a laptop, the column will take their own individual spaces. So the process of defining these structures that enhance Bootstrap to collapse or to adjust into different devices sizes, it is called the grid system. That is why I said dividing, that is what system is, a layout framework that divide is the keyword here. You can see the division I just illustrated. So we need to have that at the back of our mind, that why I'm learning Bootstrap grid system is because I want to flow with the layout that encourages Bootstrap to make sure that my website display according or adjust automatically to the size of any device that is being used. So, having said that, let's discuss further. Now, let's look at, I want to give us, I will just dictate this additional definition that may also consolidate on that first definition. So, we can also say, that is alternatively, you can just write it down. Alternatively, Bootstrap grid system is a flex bus. Flex bus. Let me see if I can. Grid system is what? A flex bus. That is like this. Flex bus. All right. It's a flex bus base layout system that uses containers is a flex. In fact, let me write it because there are some keywords that I want us to understand here. Bootstrap grid system is a flex course base layout system that uses container. That's the keyword. Uses containers, comma, rows. This definition is very important to understand. Rows and column. And column. Right, let me break it. And columns to create responsive design that automatically adjusts or adapts. Let's use the word adapts to different screen sizes. All right, adapt to different screen sizes. So that is additional definition. This definition makes it very clear. This one talk about what are the elements that are used in formulating this structure that enhances your website displaying or being responsive to different screen sizes. So we mentioned container. That is where I'm actually going to container. So which means that if you are developing the Bootstrap grid system, you must have a container. And then inside the container, you have row. Then inside the row, you have columns. If you look at the diagram that I drew the other time, if I could just bring it temporarily just for us to understand this picture. So this is like the container. This is the container. Now inside this container, we now have row. So the whole of this is a row. Then inside this row, we can have the grid system. That is the columns. These are the columns. So which means that we have container. Inside container, you have a row. Inside the row, you have columns. All this will be represented with HTML element. For example, this container can be a div. This one can be another div, but with different class. So this one will be div with the class name container. This one will be div with the class name row, while this one will be div with the class name column. So all this structure we are talking about are going to be defined with HTML container elements. I hope that is clear. Let me get a response. Let me get a response, please. I hope I'm trying to give up because sometimes students find it difficult to understand what the concept is all about. That's why I'm trying to break it down first so that you can easily flow with the practical aspect. So now let's think of it like a table. Let's look at it like a table with invisible columns. So we should say grid system, Bootstrap grid system as a table with invisible columns. You place your content inside those columns. And Bootstrap ensure everything aligns properly across devices. So that is another perspective. We can see the Bootstrap grid system. Now, do not forget that whenever you hear Bootstrap grid system, we are talking about the layout. How will the content of my web page be structured that can support the website adjusting across different devices. That is what we mean by a website is responsive. In other words, a website that is not responsive is a website whereby it opens very well on a particular device and it does not open very well on another device. Or it opens very well on a browser, maybe when you are using Google Chrome, it flows very well. And then when you open it with another browser, everything scatters. Such a website is as good as what? Not responsive. And these are not the kind of websites you are to build. Customers do not like websites that cannot open very well on their phone. And for our information, we should know that when you are building websites, your website should be mobile first. That is one of the thing we achieve with Bootstrap. Bootstrap is mobile first website, which means that what? It prioritizes phone, mobile devices, smaller devices before laptop. Because statistics have showed that out of 100% persons that uses or that exploit website, 90 or over 90% of them uses their phone. So why will you as a developer spend time building website for laptop user, which is just like 5%, which means you are indirectly saying that only 5% persons that uses your website will appreciate your work, while 95% will not appreciate it. So how do you make the money? That is the question. Nobody will recommend you. So let's quickly talk about the core components. Let's discuss the core component. I hope we are writing down our step and the topic, core components. Of the grid. Core component of the grid system. So here we are talking about what are the main components, what are the main features that we need to understand when you are developing the Bootstrap grid system. So number one is container. Remember, I just mentioned it now. Number one is container. The core component. In other words, you cannot create this system of dividing a web page into 12 equal columns that can adapt or break into screen sizes without talking about container. Remember the structure that I gave us before. So how do we define container in Bootstrap grid system? Container means fixed width. Fixed width, which means that what? Responsive breakpoint. Responsive what? Breakpoint. That is container. For example, I am going to illustrate it so that you understand it. So let's say I have an element now, div. I just want you to watch. I create an element div and I give it a class. I give it a class container, which means I'm using this as one of the grid system components, which is the container. And I give it container. Now let's go to the front end. Let me add something inside. So let's say I have some write-up inside it direct. So let's go to the front end. Then I would like you to explain something to me here. If you observe very well here, you will see that there is a margin that is given here. I want somebody to unmute and respond. There is a margin that is given here. Can you identify this?
Margin left.
Good, margin left. So which means that what? Bootstrap is already speaking. Now, just because of the class that I use. That is what is making that impact. So which means that it has a kind of created margin from the left so that the content will not be too, touching or too closer to the body of the browser. Just by adding this container as one of what the Bootstrap core elements. Now, we also have the second one. The second one, I'll be illustrating them as I'm using them. We have container. We have container hyphen fluid. We have container hyphen fluid. So it's one of the Bootstrap grid system core components. And what does it mean? This one means piece width. Piece what? Width. With 100%. With 100%. So if I use this class, let me say, welcome to digital seal hub. So if I use this, if I remove this container now and I make it what? And I make it, it's like I've converted everything to comments. I want to see. Let me check again. Okay, so everything has been switched to comment. So if I make this, Control X comment. Trying to check something. Okay, so let me just know what I pressed that. Let me see. Okay, so if I think I was typing, okay, welcome to Digitech Zero. Okay, so now as you can see, if I change this class name from just container and I make it what? Fluid. This one is 100%. So if I go back to the front end, you see that what? That margin has gone. So this is just like you create an element where we're learning manual CSS that will say, okay, I don't want it, I want, normally when we create div are 100% width by default. So if you are creating div and you want it to span across the entire width, that you shouldn't create any margin, then you shouldn't use just container elements. You use what? Container hyphen what? Fluid. I hope that is clear. Then if you want to create a div that you want it to give you left margin or some space from the left hand side, then you use just container. Remember what I told us last time. What you need to focus on when you are learning Bootstrap is the Bootstrap classes. That is the best thing, because this time around you are no longer in charge of the CSS. You are only using the classes Bootstrap use so that you can automatically inherit the properties that must have been attached to those classes. So far we are talking about what? The core component. So I've explained the two core components, which is what? The container and what? Container hyphen fluid. So another container, another core element is, which is number 3, is row. I mentioned them earlier before. You cannot talk about Bootstrap grid system and you do not mention what? Row as one of its components. So how do we define row? We can say a row is a horizontal group of columns. A row is a horizontal group of columns. Remember the structure that I gave us the other time. You have a row like this. Let me draw it again so that you can picture it. Remember, this is what I created the other time. This is the container now. That one that we just talked about. This is the container. For example, this is the container. Now, inside this container, you have a row. Inside this row, you have what? Different what? Column. Which, as we proceed, we'll get to know what this kind of vertical spaces are called. So, this is a row, and then the row is grouping what? Column. So these are the structures that must be followed. If you don't follow this structure, your website will not be responsive. In as much you are applying Bootstrap, you are mandated to follow the sequence. Container, row, and then column inside it. That is why we are saying column or row rather is a horizontal group of what? Columns. So I believe that is noted. All right. So let's look at an example of it in reality. Because I told us that all this grammar we are blowing, column, row, they are going to be represented with what? HTML elements. Like in this case now, you saw how we represented the column with a div. The only thing we did is just to add that class. So that div becomes the what? The container, and also container what? Field. So now let's illustrate the row. So let me remove the whole of this. All right, then I can say here I have a div. Now I'm going to show us a logic. Perhaps I've not showed us before. Now, whenever you are creating a div and you have an intention of classing it, don't type the entire div before you class it. That is for div only, not for other elements too. So I can just say, okay, I want to create a div that will represent the row that I just defined as the horizontal group of columns now. Now, what will make that div to act as a row is the class name that I'm going to assign. So if I come here now and I'm going to assign the class name row, so I will say dots row. Once you type this dot row and you press enter, it will create the div and automatically assign that class name to it. So what this is the Bootstrap words, which means that inside this, let me use a comment to explain something here. So inside this, because we define row as a horizontal what? Horizontal group of column, which means that what? Horizontal space holding different what? Vertical spaces, which are called column. So in that case, I will just tell you here that what? Here you have your columns here. All right, so you have your columns here. So I don't want to take us further because we'll get to where we will look at the application very well. What we are learning is just Bootstrap grid system. And we are trying to understand the core components, so that when we are defining the layout that supports our website responsiveness across different devices, everything will be in order. So the third one, remember that what these container are supposed to be one. So under container, we have just container. We have container fluid. So I will now say I'm supposed to call this one number 3, but I can still say number 4. So the next one I want to discuss is that should be number 3, but I'm taking it as number 4 if we are taking container and container fluid as one. Now is column. We just talk about column. So what is column in Bootstrap grid system? What is column? So column, let me define it here. Columns are vertical. Columns are vertical section. A vertical section where content lives. Where content lives. So we must understand that the columns are vertical what? They are vertical sections where content lives. So let me take the structure again. Let me give us the picture again. Now, remember the other time I drew something like this. So I am modeling the grid system. So this is the container, which could be container or container fluid, depending on you. If you want to be 100%, you use which container. Please, can you unmute and respond? If you want it to span 100% on the page, you use which of the container? I need a response, sharp, quickly. If you want it to span 100% width, you need which container?
Container fluid.
Good. If you want to create margin from the left, you use what? Just what?
Just container.
Good. So now inside this container, we have the row. We have the row, which we said that is the group of what? Columns. Now inside the row, we have columns now. This is 1. This is col-1. Then I have col-2. And then I have col-3. Right? Now, I have col-3. Now, the next thing is, now from that definition, you will not agree that what? This row is grouping what? This column. Now, from the definition I just gave you right now for column, it means that your image, let's say your product image, the product name, the description, the learn more button, all of them are wrapped inside what? Column. And as we proceed in our next class, you will not get to know that these columns, they are going to be recognized as what? Card. Remember, we have been using card. I told us then that we are borrowing that term from Bootstrap. So card is a typical term used in Bootstrap to represent each of the columns and the content wrapped inside them. So this is one card with what? Different content. This is another card. So, but they are called column at this level. So this, now, let me give us a simple calculation. How will I know that when this website that is showing 3 columns in one row comes on a mobile phone, how will it display? So I want somebody to unmute and tell me. Look at this. On laptop, is displaying what? 3 of them in one row. When it comes to mobile phone, how will it display? Let me know if you still remember the explanation I gave earlier on. Hello, sharp. If you are hearing, there's no time.
It will be displaying like it will be in column in what they call it, horizontal instead of vertical.
So here now, how many rows do you have here? How many rows do you have in this grid
We have
system?
one.
One row,
We
right?
have
One
row.
by what? By what?
By 3
By 3
column.
column, right? Then when it
Yes.
comes here now, it will become what? Regarding to
3
this.
column.
It
3
become
column
what?
by 1 row.
3 column by 1 row. Look at it again. You have 1 row holding 3 columns, right? When it comes here, it becomes what? Remember that what? When it comes here, it will become like this. Have it?
Yes,
Become
that is
like
what
this. Now, if it become like this is a column, isn't it? This is a row also. The whole of it will be as 1 column and 1 row. Hope you know that.
Okay.
Good. When it comes here now, here you have one row, but here you now be having three what?
That
Three
means three
row,
column, three
three
rows.
by one. Three rows now by one column. Because look at this here. Sorry, three row. But in this case now, remember that why I'm using the column, I will have used the word container. So I'm saying this because this is a column, this is another column, this is another column, and they are all in one row. So when you
Yes.
come here, this one column will be in one row. Are you getting it now? No longer, each of them will take one row and column. That is what is happening here. So this is a row, this is a column, this is a row, this is a column, this is a row, this is a column. That is
That
if you
means it
are
should be 3 times 3 now.
good.
If
That
it's
is good. No, this 3 by 1, I was referring to the container. There are
okay.
three rows in one container. But if
Container.
we are looking
Okay.
at column, it will become what? 3 by 3.
3.
Three rows, and what? Three what?
Column.
Columns. Did you understand it now?
Yes, yes, sir.
Good. So that is the logic. So this analysis is what we are calling what? Grid system. Now, let me also, remember I used the word breakpoint. Breakpoint. Now, we are going to get to that aspect soon so that you understand what it is. But let me just chip in here. Now, what will determine when this column can become one row and one column? It is the width that is set. The width. So we are going to set the width that we are going to set it from laptop to smallest devices. That if somebody use a laptop to open this, you can use a particular width. If you remember, let me just take us back to when we were trying to implement responsiveness manually. You know, we're using a function in CSS called media query. You remember that at
Yes,
media, that at
yes,
media. Good. And
yes,
you know the structure of that at media. We say maximum width, right?
yes.
Maximum width, which means that you were stating the breaking point, that it should not, that maximum width is the break point, that once it finishes that space, it has no choice than to what? To break. And when it breaks, it goes down to what? To the next row. So which means that if you set here to be 1024 as your maximum width, once a device that span up to this width, open this website, the whole of these three columns will display in one row. Now, if it now comes on a phone that do not have up to this 1024, then because you have set another maximum width for another device, let's say for mobile, maximum width is 700 width. Now, it will not be checking it. Once somebody try to open this website with a mobile phone, it will not check the maximum width defined on phone and break from that. So instead of allowing it to span up to that 1024, it will break at that 700. And when it break there, that is where this one will become what? A row and what? A column.
A column.
Are you getting it now? So we are going to get to that properly. I just want us to understand this, because if you really understand all this logic behind it, you will see that it will sync faster and better. So,
Okay.
like I said, let's give an example of column. Remember, I said our columns are vertical what? Section where content lives. For example, take note of this, that you divide 12 across your layout. So which means that we have what? We have 12 what? Equal division. So if I come here now and say, I want to create another div. Okay, so let's say this particular div, and I'm giving it a class that will make it to represent column for me. So let's say I give it a class call hyphen Just hold on. There's here. Okay, so sorry. So now just take a look at what is going to happen here. If I say col, we will actually dive into this fully. I don't think time will permit us. I have MD, for example. I have MD and I have what? 6. And then I have my content here. So my content is, let's say, welcome to Digitech. Welcome to Digitech Hub. Welcome to Digitech Hub. Now, what we are saying here now is this call here means what? That this div is playing the role of what? Column. And remember, we just defined column to be what? Content what? Holders. Now, here, this MD represents what? Medium devices. Medium devices. That is what? Not laptop. It could fall between tablets, devices that are smaller than laptop. Are you following? Are you following?
Yes, sir.
I'm getting some distraction here. So now, the 6 you are seeing here means that the whole of the web page will be divided into 2. Can you tell me the calculation that is done when you say column media on media devices on media devices should be 6?
It means there should be 1 row and 6 column.
Now look at it here, because this is where most people get it wrong. You have this, and we are telling you that we have this, and we are telling you that you can have 12 of it, right? In one container, either container food or container. Now, if you divide 12 by 2, what do you have?
6.
6, right? Then if you are saying that the column width on a medium device should be 6, that means that what? 6 of the columns, 6 of the columns will become 1. Are you getting it? That means you are dividing 12 into what? 2, right? So this is the structure you are going to get. You are going to get a structure like this. 2 columns. Are you getting the logic now? Because the entire width is 12. If one width is 6, then you have another 6 remaining, right? And that will give you just 2 columns. Are you following? Did you get the logic? Now, if I put,
yes, sir.
Okay. Now it doesn't mean that because it's column 6, then you have 6 columns. That column 6 means that out of 12, the width of 1 column have taken 6, which means that what? You can only divide the whole of that 12, the whole of that page into 2 what? Spaces, vertical spaces. That is why we arrive at what? What you are using to divide it is what you capture, which means that if this to be my home page and I use this width, it's going to divide the home page into what? 2.
I'm lost.
So what I'm saying, did you understand it? What I'm saying is that, okay, let me give another illustration. You understand it now. Let me give another illustration. If I put here 4, if I put here 4, if I put here 4, you know what that means? It means that 12, it means what? If I put here, if I put here 4, it means that you are saying that 12 divided by 4. That will give you how many? You check.
3.
That will give you what? 3, right?
3.
So how many layers are you going to get? How many
You
layers?
get,
How many layers
you
are you
get
going to get?
3 layers.
You get 3 layers because you are saying that the width of 1 out of 12. You are saying that from here to this place is 12. Let's look at it from this angle. And you are saying that here alone, I've taken 4, right? Here, I've taken 4. Here, I've taken 4. So you see that what? That will give you what? 3 layers. Please, this is the standard way of calculating the grid system.
Okay.
So,
It must be 12.
yeah, it
Like
must
the
be 12.
maximum.
Good.
The maximum is 12.
Is 12.
So anything they give you, divide by 12.
Then you now know how many spaces you are going to get. So if I put 2 here now, if I put 2 here, what would that be?
2, that is 6 now.
Good. That means how many spaces are you going to get?
You are going to have 6
6.
spaces.
Good. Then if I put, of course, we don't have 1. 1 is that 100%, which is, if it's 100%, then you will have just used the other one. Are you getting it?
Yes.
So please just take note of that. If I put 5 here, what would that be? If I put 5, if I put 5,
That would be 2.5.
Which means that what? The first 2 columns will be bigger, will have the same size. The last one will be smaller. That is the structure you are going to get. Good. So that is the logic. Thank God that you are getting it. That's the logic. So now, rounding up, Mrs. Oyiko could not join back. Let's work. So understanding the 12 column system, you can combine columns as long as they add up to 12. Take note of that. Understanding the 12 column system, you can combine columns as long as they add up to 12. That is what, no matter how you are combining, it will add up to 12. Like when we did 5 now, we did 5, 5, 10, right? And then the remaining 1, 2. Everything still add up to what? To 12. Then you also have, when you do the 2, 2, 2, 2, everything still added to what? To 12. Are you with me? When you did 3, 3, 3, everything still added to 12. So long everything adds to 12. Must not exceed 12. So let's do a kind of some analysis that will help us to understand this logic better. So I can come here now and say column, make sure you write this down. If I can have column 12, which will amount to which amount to what? Full what? Width. I hope you are taking the note. If you say column 12, you know why it's column 12 amount to full width? Because it's using the whole width now. That is only 1. Are you getting it?
Yes,
using the whole width. Good. Now another one is let's have it this way. Let's have column. Let's have column -6. Let's have column -6. Then plus. I'm just using this to give you the illustration. Just using this to give you the illustration. Plus another column -6. So what would this one be? Can you give me the results? This will give us what?
This will give us the full because you have added
two equal to give us what? 2 equal. Don't worry, I'll put it now. What of what we did now? 2 equal columns.
Okay, you are not adding it.
No, we are adding now. at it now. This is column 6, right? One column using what? One column using 6 width. Another column using another 6 width. So which means that you end up having this now. Look at this. You end up having the initial illustration I give to you. You end up having what? 2 equal.
Okay.
Are you getting it now? You end up having 2 equal because here is 6, while here is what? 6. That is the meaning of what? When you have column 6 plus column 6, you end up having what? 2 equal what? Column. Good. Just make sure you note down this analysis. It's very important. So now the next one is if I have column hyphen 4 plus column hyphen 4, right? Then plus another column hyphen 4. What would that amount to? What would that give to us? That
It will give you 3 equal columns.
3 equal. Now you are getting it. 3 equal what? Columns. So what would the structure be? If I were to draw it, the structure will be like this. That means the entire web page will be
divided
into equal 3 what? Spaces. Good. That is perfect. So now let's do more. Let's do more before we round up because I don't want to make that. Just want to make sure that we understand these concepts because this is the foundation of Bootstrap. If you don't understand it, the whole of the Bootstrap will confuse you. So now, sorry, Jerry. So now, let's say we have this. Let's say we have this. We have column hyphen 3. Column hyphen 3.
And that will give you 4 equal columns.
Sorry, Jerry. There are a lot of distractions here. I'm trying to. Sorry. So, like I was saying, so if we have, hope you are still here. We have this, okay, we have this plus col hyphen 9. What would that amount to? Remember we said you can combine so long they add up to 12. So what would this one give us?
It will give us 1 big column and a small column.
Good. So this is going to give us sidebar plus, which is that main one, the full column that you're talking about. Main content, which is the main one you talk about, the main one, main content. So you can do your calculation. This is what we are trying to point out, that you can do your addition as you want it, so long it's add up to what? 12. So you can say 2, 1, 3, 4. When you add it together and it's equal to 12, fine. That is the condition. I hope it is clear to you.
Yes, sir.
Good. So we are going to stop here. In our next class, we will look at, just write it down so that you remind me. We will continue from responsive. There are still some few calculations we are going to look at. Responsive breakpoints. So we'll now analyze this breakpoint properly. Responsive breakpoints. That is what we shall be looking at. We'll start with this. We will definitely complete this and look at another component. So we'll look at, okay, what is the mobile breakpoint? What is the tablet breakpoint? What is laptop breakpoint? So we'll look at all that. All right. Have a blessed day.
You too, sir. Bye-bye, sir.